I'm wondering if this is actually a way in which we could learn from other countries in the EU where they still retain loud hailers and all sorts of mechanisms on tops of buildings where they can actually communicate and send messages. But other than that, I think it's working again, pushing forward those voluntary organisations that work with minority groups, whatever you're calling transient populations, whether you're talking about people who are coming into area to work or whether they're passing through visiting tourists or quite whatever. Again, it's about where you can publicise information, where you can actually get people to appreciate when they're travelling about and they're moving into different areas, what are the risks. I mean, we just have no... When as we all move about and travel and go on holidays and things, how many of us consider the sort of environment going into, what sort of risks we may face, and indeed what are the arrangements that exist in those places that we go to? I suspect nobody gives us a tuppence of thought, and we heard that we all take out insurance for property. We take out insurance when we go on holiday, but it's very much about if we lose our luggage and arrive without our pants and toothpaste when we get there. Do we actually think about the other sorts of insurance arrangements we might make, about just preparing ourselves to think about the environment that we're going into? So I think it comes back again to getting people to be better informed, for more transparency and more trust about how we communicate with people and actually how you can display and share messages as people pass through an area, and about personal generic plans that work wherever you are. But other than that, I think it's back to the Emergency Planning Society and professional associations to actually organise how we officially communicate.
Okay, so Justin, we have can we make this system effective, a forecasting system, and if so, are your members going to give us all a discount if we subscribe to it?
There's a couple.
I won't ask you for how much discount.
Yeah.
Non-numerical answer.
I think, again, we've made a lot of progress since the summer floods, but there's still a long way to go. I've heard from more than one local authority that actually they're now being bombarded with flood risk warnings, which is as unhelpful as not getting any flood risk warnings. So it's getting that balance right, and we don't want to end up with a situation where people are so organisations are so worried about not warning people that they're constantly warning people, because that's equally ineffective. I think there's a general point which I think importantly made just now, which is that we need to make sure people think about risk and understand risk and prepare for risk. So how many people actually have a flood kit? It was one of the things that Michael Pitt went on about. How many people have a flood kit so that when the worst happens, you're prepared? If you had to leave your home in a rush, how many people actually know who their home insurer is and the phone number to call them on to get help? I fear not enough. In terms of whether or not it's signing up to flood risk should get you a discount, I'd come at it the other way actually, which is I think that the norm should be that you are signed up and that you're perhaps automatically signed up, which I know the Environment Agency are keen on, so that it is the norm and everyone can benefit from that. In terms of whether it should lead to a discount, we would need to know that actually warning people has an impact on the claims cost, and often it won't, because rightly when people get the warning they're going to be worrying about themselves, their family, their pets, and making sure they're safe. It's not actually necessarily about making sure that your valuables are safe. Of course that's nice if that happens, but rightly the first priority should be your personal safety and that of your family.
Okay, David, what's your experience from your research?
Sure. First of all, talking about forecasts, I think these are absolutely vital for us in terms of being able to plan and prepare for future events. And obviously we've got things like the UK SIP climate change forecasts, which provide essential data so that we can have some long-term planning for future climate change implications. But there's also obviously scope to further develop that to take into account things like the surface water flooding and groundwater flooding and so forth. So a whole raft of development there that's still required. Coming back to the issue about the sort of transient population, what I sort of sprang to mind for me was tenants, perhaps the vulnerable tenancy. I'm thinking about the ethnic minorities and perhaps the elderly. And I agree wholly with the sort of sentiments of the question that not enough is being done to look after their interests, and perhaps I'd call on perhaps legislation to ensure that information is being collated and that those vulnerable transient members of the population are given the information they need.
Okay, let me just...